Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conley, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a fantastic Wednesday. I'm a little thrown off with us recording on Wednesday, but all day I've been preparing for arguably the biggest flag football game of my entire life, so I'm ready. Whoa, the lighting is hitting you magnificently.
Yeah, golden hour. Well, good luck to you. Good luck to you out there today.
Thanks. I've been stretching my quads all day.
Smart. You got to stay loose out there. That's arguably the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, I know everyone wants to hear about my flag football adventure, so I'll keep talking about it here. There was a game where I felt like I nearly tore my quad tendon or whatever it is right off the bone. That was fun.
That'd be tough. You know what else is fun? Visiting Three Notch'd in Harrisonburg.
Look at that segue.
They pay us the big bucks for these ad reads. Jack, they have the Fresh Beer Club. You can find out more at 3notchbrewing.com. They have First Tap Fridays, exclusive releases every Friday. That's unbelievable what they're doing down there.
That's
We're
insane.
up there for you.
Yeah, I guess it's over there. Insane stuff. You got to get over there. You can get yourself a cool hat like the one I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Great beers. What's your favorite Three Notch beer?
Oh, man. That's a great question. Anything that has mile in it, right? So any of those sort of basics that they have are good. And can I say Biggie, what is it? Biggie S'mores? Is that what it was?
You like Biggie S'mores?
Can I give that an honorary shout out right now as my temporary favorite? Because it was one that I expected to be really not good. And it's one that surprised me so much that, you know what, right now, February 15th, that's my number one.
Really?
But I don't think I could drink like a 6-pack of that due to like my own personal preferences. But for one beer, you need one beer right now. I would drink that.
All right. Good to know. Interesting.
What would you pick? What's your favorite?
Emperor of Clouds.
That's a great one.
Yeah, nice little IPA, little hazy action. Good any day of the week. You know what else is good any day of the week? Betting on sports. BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. Everything from NFL playoffs to pro and college basketball, UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds and team matchup info with player news and game trends at BetOnline. With live betting options, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. For all first-time depositors, if you deposit, say, $200, BetOnline will hook you up with $100 in free bets. So essentially, you're getting $300 for the price of two. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE, that's promo code BLEAV, to get that 50% welcome bonus when you sign up at betonline.ag, where the game starts.
Heck yeah, brother. What an exciting time to be here, What an
I
exciting
can really
time.
tell in your voice. I think this 5 p.m.
I was looking through Untapped and Three Notch beers. I feel like, do they only have one? Is it only 40 mile? And I was confusing Minuteman as mile because that's another one that I like. I thought for some reason they had another.
I think you're getting confused with Devil's Backbone. Gasp. Because they have like the $8 or like $16.
I was picturing the orange can in my head also being mile, but that's the Minuteman.
They also just rebranded their cans from Minuteman, so you're
really
looking at your local Wegmans.
I was looking at the small batch they have right now. The Green Dragon, some sort of Shire ale. That'd be right in my alley. And they have a salt and pepper sour. What?
All right, are we going to the Louisiana game?
Yeah, sorry.
For men's basketball?
I'll give them a second here. Are the Dukes back?
No.
You don't think the Dukes are back?
Okay. I'll sum it up here before we dive into our thoughts on this men's basketball team. a weekend that was primed to go 2-0 in away basketball. I know what you're going to tell me, Bennett. Jack, it's hard to win on the road in college basketball. Look, I get it, but you're coming off of a fantastic stretch, and then you go into the weekend and you go 1-1, and arguably that Coastal game, is it rude of me to say they shouldn't have won?
Well, they did, though. I feel like that's huge.
Okay, that's fair. So, but at the end of the day, they were staring an 0-2 weekend down in the face. Before we kind of dive into the games itself, I do want to ask you a question because this just kind of populated into my mind as I was explaining that. The way they have these games set up, Thursday, Saturday, it's boom, boom, right? And you go for a full week without doing anything, and then it's boom, boom. To you, does it feel like it's like you don't get much momentum going? Like it's weekend to weekend? Where when they had won, 5 of 6, in my mind, they had gone 2 weekends in a row going 2-0.
I understand, I guess, the competitive thought of like everybody plays Thursday, everybody plays Saturday. Kind of sucks from like a viewing perspective where it's like nothing happens Sunday through Wednesday. Like just nothing happens. In what the women are also Thursday.
Yeah, because in
Saturday.
CAA they did something very similar where it was like you guys play on these days, but I think it was men Thursday, women Friday, men Saturday, women Sunday. So like, but my point is more so like in my mind as someone who watches every game and dives into everything like that. To me, it feels like it's less cohesive as a season. And it's more weekend stretches. Like, can you go 2-0 this weekend? And then when they did have that really good stretch where they were winning 5 of their last 6 or whatever that stretch was before this weekend, it didn't feel like they had that momentum. It felt like they had put together a few good weekends. But in my mind, I wasn't like, oh, wow, dating back to 4 weeks ago, they've won a lot.
I don't like it at all. I think they talked about, I want to say it was the DNR wrote about it, but I think they're going to change it for travel reasons. Because like Thursday to Saturday apparently has just been hard, I think, on kind of everyone. Where it's like if you have 2 road games, like it's just a lot of travel and like hard on your body to play Thursday. You get 1 day off. Yeah. It's a weird schedule. I like a Wednesday, Saturday maybe works more, but maybe it doesn't because if you're on a, like for JMU, they were Georgia Southern and Coastal. I imagine they're not going Georgia Southern, Harrisonburg, Coastal. I imagine they went Georgia Southern and then direct to Coastal, which if it's Wednesday, I don't know if you're spending like 3 days in Myrtle Beach. I'm sure the players would sign up for that one, but I don't think that was really how it would work.
Yeah, and also with that 1 day off, like and Thursday games are almost always at night, and Saturday games are almost like afternoon to late afternoon. So Georgia Southern, you assume you're finishing that game at 9. You're probably sleeping in the hotel that night, waking up early Friday, flying or busing to your next spot, getting a quick practice in, eating, sleep, wake up, shoot around, game.
It's just a lot. Yeah, it's the road trips are kind of ridiculous. So I'm excited that they had the last 4 at home. I think that's going to be huge. You mentioned the Coastal game being kind of ugly. It was. But them finding a way to win helped. I also think the fact that they don't play for a few days has sort of cleansed my brain. Right, there was a Super Bowl in between. There's other college basketball. Tiger Woods is playing this week. So my sports brain's been flushed. So instead of thinking of how they sort of were underwhelming last week, and I'm like, yeah, I'm back in. Like they got some.
You're already back in?
I'm not back in. I'm just less negative than I was over the weekend.
I'm still negative. I still have like little to no hope. You played Coastal Carolina, the worst team in defense in the Sun Belt. One of the 30 worst teams in all of Division I college basketball. There's 363 teams in Division I college basketball, and they're one of the 30 worst. And you struggled for 50 minutes of that game. Sorry, for 30 minutes of that game.
A lot of overtimes. But it was one. They were down 5 with like 5 minutes left, and they ended up winning by almost 10. So I'll give them that where they blitzed them at the end. But yes, it was disappointing. The shooting was not great, and that was kind of the same story against Georgia Southern, where they didn't shoot the ball that well, even though they actually played some decent defense. And the score's kind of high there because they play very fast. You got a lot of possessions, but like their defense has been fine. I think, Georgia Southern's like basically a point per possession, which won't kill you. So I don't know. I mean, they kind of are what they are at this point, which is it feels like they need some stuff to go their way in the conference tournament to win it. But they have a better chance than like 8 or 9 teams, maybe even 10.
Yeah, I think there's still a strong potential that not a strong potential, but there's still a potential out there that they could win the Sun Belt tournament and things can go their way. But when you're watching it, it's just so evident that they need a big man.
Yeah, I think that's the part that's probably the most frustrating, right? Is they have roster issues that we've talked about for a while that they didn't really address in the offseason, which is probably, if you're looking for a big picture concern or complaint, that's probably it.
Yeah, I mean, against Georgia Southern, it just felt like they couldn't defend inside. Jalen Finch in 27 minutes, he dropped how many points? Felt like I was hearing his name all the time. 18 points, but even worse, Andrei Savrasov, who was he's their 6'7" guy. He dropped 22 on them. Carlos Curry, their 6'11" guy with Georgia Southern, dropped 9. It felt like, specifically the Georgia Southern game, because I know they won the Coastal game, but it was ugly, especially against a team like Coastal. You should beat them a lot worse than that. But I'll get off that soapbox. It just feels like, man, in the pregame, I was listening to the Georgia Southern game on radio. Byington's like, all right, we know they have X, Y, and Z, and they're going to do this. And you know exactly what they did? What Byington said. And you know what Georgia Southern did the entire game? What they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's him not having the guys he needs to play the defense to stop that type of offense. But we've seen it a few times. It was before the Coppin State game. He said, this is what they're going to do. These are their best players. This is who we have to stop. And I know it's so much easier said than done. When Coppin State, they have a pretty damn good guard. And it's hard to stop players who are really good. But it's just so frustrating when you're like, yeah, the answer is a big man.
Yeah, that's tough. I think the other stuff that's tough is you look at just the overall body of work, and they've been playing pretty good of late. I think they've won.
They have, not to take anything away. They definitely have.
7 of their last 9. So 7-2 in the last 9.
Yeah.
They're 9-5 in conference. They're 18-9 overall. I think the part that's frustrating is the schedule's so easy. They have some pieces, but it's the kind of losses they have that kind of drive me crazy. I was looking at it and on the positive front, they only have one stretch this year, is that 3-game blip in conference play where they've lost consecutive games. So obviously that's, you can't completely ignore that. But every other, the North Carolina loss, they played a non-D1 the next game. But the one after that, they still won. After Virginia, they picked up a couple, one of them non-D1, one of them against a terrible team. But they didn't – I understand that some of it's ridiculous. But they followed up some of these losses, even conference losses here. Southern missed, and then they bounced back with 4 in a row. Georgia Southern, they just beat Coastal, and now they're coming home. So they seem to bounce back well, and they fight really hard, which I thought was impressive against Coastal. They didn't have their best game, but they battled through and found a way to win, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So there's redeeming qualities to the team, which I think is worth noting. It's just also frustrating that they've left some wins on the table, I think, and it could have been a really special year. And instead, it feels like it's just a decent year.
Really, with that 3-game stretch, Texas State, App State, and South Alabama, if you go 2-1 in those and then just flip those 2 1-point losses to wins, I feel like this is a very different season we're talking about.
I mean, it just so I think the Valpo and Coppin really still get me. So I was looking at Valpo today. So their wins after beating JMU in Ken Pom. It's non-D1. This is the Ken Pom ranking of the teams. 324, 332, 344, 286, 268, 344, 268. They only beat abysmal teams. And JMU. That's what's frustrating. It's the same with Coppin State. Coppin State, after playing JMU, their record's absolutely comical. So they won that game to get to 5-9. They're 6-20 now. So they've gone 1-11 since that. Their one win was against South Carolina State, which is 340th in Ken Palm. Like they've just gotten annihilated by everyone else that they've played. They've only kept, 2 games within 10 points. And one of those games was against Delaware State, which is one of the worst teams in college basketball. Like that's what's frustrating. Is like you have so many things going for you, and then you play a team like Coppin State, where it's like if you just take care of business against horrendous teams, you're 20-7.
Yeah. Also, something to point out that was apparent. I don't know how apparent it was in Coastal, but in Georgia Southern game, it was very apparent. They're just like cold stretches. There was a point in the Georgia Southern game that they had like a 7-minute stretch where they didn't score, and Georgia Southern went on like a 20-2 run, and JMU missed like bunny after bunny after bunny. And it took me back, and we were texting about it. It took me back to the UNC game when they were missing bunny after bunny after bunny. We're like, oh, the moment's gotten to them. It's because they're playing UNC. They see all the the moment's too big type of thing. And then I watched the Georgia Southern game, and I was like, oh, it just might be the team. Like this might just be a thing that they do. It's just like miss uncontested layups.
Yeah, it's not a great thing to have, and UNC sucks. So it's pretty frustrating on a lot of different accounts. But the season's not over yet, so I wanted to get to a couple questions here. We had some questions, mostly from Dom. But Dom had a good one about the men's team. Outside of winning the conference tournament, what would allow JMU fans to deem the men's season as a success down the stretch?
Double bye, 1 win. So a double bye gets you into the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
And then 1 win gets you into semis. Now, if you get into the semis without the double bye and you win 2 games to get there, I think it's still a success. But I also kind of want to see that regular season success too.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I think the double bye, which they're in position to get it currently, they got 4 games left, home against Old Dominion, Louisiana, Marshall, and Georgia State. So you got 4 big ones at home. You hope you can get at least 2 of those. But yeah, I mean, that would give you 20 wins, good chance at a double bye. Go 3-1, you got 21 wins, a double bye, realistically, and you're right there for maybe a little conference tournament run, which is I think that's an okay step this year, even though I had higher expectations earlier.
Yeah. Also, should I hype you up a little bit here? Should I get you excited?
Yeah, you can attempt.
Okay, so here we go. This men's team has Marshall and Louisiana left.
Mm-hmm.
They're both 1 game ahead of JMU. There's a possibility if JMU can handle its business, which every time we expect them to, they don't. Every time they pull you in, they push you away. But here's an opportunity. Go out and win these final 4 games. You're probably the 2 seed in the Sun Belt Tournament. And by probably, you are the 2 seed in the Sun Belt Tournament.
That's the part that excuse me, the part that's hard to kind of get on board with is just like, if you do this, which they've had so many chances this year, like if you do this, the momentum would be crazy, right? The vibe around the program would be nuts. Now, I think it's a little more exciting because a lot of the times when they've had those, they've sort of blown it not in the AUBC. I know the Texas State one and App State were home losses, but you look, other than that, they've been pretty good at home this year. And like Valpo and Coppin State were either neutral or on the road, yeah. Georgia Southern on the road. So like they played well at home. The crowds are coming back out, right? Because the other one, that January 5th, January 7th, students aren't there. So like home, it was like a library. So I think you've got a pretty good atmosphere. Go make it happen. Like, yeah, I'll buy in, but you have to actually do it one of these times. They can't just keep being like, look at what they could do. Like at some point they got to go out and do it.
So JMU's best win this season against numbers, according to Ken Palm, was against Marshall, who is 74th in Ken Palm right now. Mm-hmm. Their next best win came against Troy, who's 130 in Ken Palm. Their final 4 games, 2 of them are against teams that are a Ken Palm of 103 or better, and then the other one's 171. I don't know where I was going with this. Old Dominion's 171 and Georgia State's 245. I guess this is where I'm getting at with it. 2 very, very winnable games. and 2 games that are also winnable. Like, this isn't, you're not going through a murderer's row of the Sun. This isn't Southern Miss 4 times. This is 3 sub 100 KenPom teams. Go ahead.
They're Louisiana Marshall are solid teams. ODU's not horrible. So like they would be good. Like I would be happy about these wins. But they're also, like you're saying, it's not Alabama's not walking through the door. Tennessee's not coming in. Tennessee's gonna beat the living crap out of Alabama, by the way.
Honestly, though, I'd rather Tennessee come in because we might be able to get a buzzer beater win.
Yeah, you get like a ridiculous buzzer beater against them. But I don't, it's not overwhelming. It would be so cool if they could enter the conference tournament with some momentum. And I even think like 3-1 gives you some momentum here down the stretch. So we'll see if they can do it. I'd like to see them go in confident, playing well in that final stretch. It would be cool to see them, be a dangerous team in the conference tournament. And it's just every time I get sucked in, they give up that 18-0 run against Georgia Southern. It's like, what's going on here?
With countless attempts to break that streak. And I think I heard Dave Riggert call 4 uncontested layups that were missed.
Yeah, it was a tough one. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Well, that leads us into this week's Three Notch Weekly Preview. Dukes host Old Dominion and Louisiana this weekend. They played at ODU just a few short weeks ago, where JMU won 78-73 in a very good game that saw them jump out to a large lead, and then ODU fought back into it. Since then, ODU has rattled off 3 straight wins, and they've won 5 of their last 6. They are in a spot, too, with JMU. If they win out, if they can go 3-1 or something like that down the stretch, they, too, are playing for a double bye. This is an ODU team that started kind of slow. I don't think a lot of us had a lot of hopes. They lost to 315 Arkansas State, lost to Coastal Carolina. But as of late, they've started to rattle things off. They've climbed up KenPom a bit. And Jeff Jones has the Monarchs set for a solid run. JMU is going to have its hands full against an old rival. And then on Saturday, Louisiana comes to town. Louisiana's dropped their last 2 games, but they're taking on Louisiana Monroe on Thursday before heading to Harrisonburg to take on JMU. Louisiana's pretty good, man. Louisiana opened the season 5-0, then rattled off 5 straight wins after losing to Drake. So they were sitting at 10-1. They're 10-4 in conference. They're pretty good. It's left the door. Their 2 losses, though, have now left the door open for JMU to catapult into that second spot in the Sun Belt. They're led by Jordan Brown, Themis Folks, Greg Williams, Terrence Lewis. Greg Williams and Terrence Lewis both have an offensive rating top 45 in the nation. What does JMU have to do to win these games?
Yeah, it's an interesting little weekend for the Dukes where you got the ODU game where Old Dominion doesn't shoot it that well. I was looking, they've won 4 road games in a row, and I was like, that's amazing. Look at the Monarchs go. And then I looked at the margins. 2-point win, 3-point win, 1-point win, 2-point win. So I don't know. I feel like we're getting a little lucky there. So I think JMU's going to take care of business Thursday with a raucous crowd at home against the team that they're better than. Saturday, I think it's got a chance to be a shootout. Louisiana's got a top 45 offense, according to KenPom. They shoot the crap out of the ball. They've got a couple guys that are like 40+%. That's one, like if you're JMU, you're at home, you can score 2, you play fast, like hang around and put up a fight in that game, force some turnovers, try to get in transition a little bit and see if you can win a shootout. I think 1-1 would not kill you this weekend, but it's a good opportunity to get 2, especially if you can get that first one. Obviously, if you lose it, it's hard to get 2 if you lose the first one. So you gotta get that first one, do that, and try to get a little momentum going. I do like that they get Louisiana at home because that's a team I think with a legitimate crowd can maybe get a little intimidated and maybe shoot just a bit below their average.
Louisiana undefeated at home in Sun Belt play. Their 4 losses on the road have all come on the road, I should say. Their schedule has also been very weird in conference play. Started off with 2 away games, home, then 4 straight away, home, away, home, away. Just just looks weird when you're looking at it, like as a whole. Something I worry about with Louisiana specifically. JMU's defense tends to let you take the three. They're 36th in the nation in three-point percentage. So if they come in with kind of that same defensive mindset where we're going to guard the heck out of the paint when you send like an entry pass, we're going to get our hands in there, we're going to turn you over that way. If they let them just throw the ball around the outside, I don't know if JMU has a chance to hang in with him.
It's going to be fascinating, too, because Louisiana's got two guys who have made, this is against Division I teams, two guys who have made at least 43s. Both of them shoot over 40% from three. Nobody else on the team has made more than 25. So you have Greg Williams and Kentrell Garnett who are just jacking threes and hitting them at a very high rate, which is like, oh, I wonder what that's like. Because the first part's pretty relatable, but the second part maybe not quite as much as a JMU fan. So that'll be interesting if they can maybe key in somehow on those two and slow them down a little bit. That's a big time test, and then the Marshall game next week will be a big test too. So they've got some fun ones coming up, but great opportunities to make something happen.
I don't know if you mentioned this too, that they're the second best 3-point shooting team in the Sun Belt and the worst defending the three.
I think it's got a chance to be a really fun game in terms of just like a ton of points.
Here's the thing. If JMU can score more points, they could win this game. If JMU hits their shots, it'll be fun. But this seems like the game plan that Friedel and Morse and Molson all have been waiting for all season, where Biden is going to sit down in the locker room pregame and just go, boys, jack them. And like they may finish with like 30 plus attempts from three. Now, if they're hitting them, it'll be fun. And I'll leave it at that.
Louisiana also fouls a ton, which is like, so they might be going to the line a lot. There's a chance it's like an exceptionally frustrating game for JMU fans where they're just like getting to the line constantly. They're getting good looks from three and they're just missing them. If they make them, I think they have a chance to look like people will buy in again if JMU actually has a good shooting game against Louisiana because they're going to get very good looks, I think, consistently throughout that game.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to move on over to the women's side?
Let's do it.
After a weird few weekends, JMU came back home against Louisiana and Arkansas State and picked up a 6-point win against Louisiana and a 23-point win, 13-point win against Arkansas State.
The gears turning. Doing that, man.
Are they back? Oh, I didn't even see your lower third. Are they back?
I think they might be back. Why not? I think they're back.
In their 13-point win against Arkansas State, they had Kiki go for 22, Kozlova go for 17, and German, who is a name I haven't seen at the top of a box score
for a while. But then Hazel got the start with Kobe King Hawaii. Coach O was talking about how he was changing up the starting rotations. Really glad he's doing it so late in the season. I, too, always say, if you can really just throw a wrench in everything at the latest possible moment, you have to do that. Peyton got 19 minutes off the bench. Love seeing Steph Odekirk getting 23 minutes off the bench. Williams and Goodman, and Claire Neff with only 4 minutes.
Yeah, back-to-back games of only 4 minutes. It's interesting. I was saying while you were gone that last week I was complaining or pointing out the 3-point defense was an issue.
Yeah.
They held their two opponents this week to 6 of 36 from three, which is 16%. That's not really sustainable in terms of how low it was, but it's a nice bounce back from giving up like 50% from three. Somewhere in the middle, I think, gives them a chance. If they're playing good D, they'll have chances.
So you were right with what you said last week when you said there's no way this is sustainable. It'll come back down to earth. Not only did it come back down to earth, it crashed down like a meteor, like the UFOs that were shot down this last weekend or the Chinese spy balloon.
Folks, what is going on in our skies?
Who knows, man?
But yeah, they're coming back. I still think they're kind of waiting on a really efficient performance from Kiki Jefferson that they haven't quite had. Now, she hits a lot of free throws and gets to the free throw line, which makes her performances more efficient, and rebounding-wise, she's been great. But in terms of shooting, she was 7 of 30 over the weekend. They won both. But that feels like one, if you're going to win the Sun Belt championship, I think you're going to need like 40 to 50% shooting from Jefferson in a game or two that really matter.
I don't know if you necessarily need it from her, but I think you need it from everyone else if she's not efficient. Yes. Like Peyton McDaniel went 2 of 9 against Arkansas State, and they still won by double digits, but you want to see that be like 4 of 9, 5 of 9. Kozlova went 8 of 14, which is like head-scratchingly low for her.
Still pretty good.
It is. But like, we're spoiled because there was a point she was going like 12 of 13, which is also unattainable like for an entire season. But I also say 8 of 14 because like 99.9% of her shots are from 2 feet in.
Yeah, they're all.
But
she's not taking a 3 if things are going according to plan.
She also never gets fouled. Went to the foul line once.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. She just like pivots in there and gets herself some looks.
But yeah, you need someone. You need like 1 or 2 other people to be efficient if Kiki's not going to be efficient.
Absolutely. And they've got huge games against Texas State and Old Dominion this week, both on the road, which is very hard. We'll see. I mean, I think a split there is honestly not bad because they're still in that mix. They're weirdly in the mix to win the league, but could also get like the 5 seed. So I did want to say, because I haven't said this in the past, I feel like we've kind of, or at least I have kind of ragged on Sunbelt basketball. Very compelling races in the men's and women's basketball seasons this year, which I'm impressed by. Oh, wow. Would you look at that?
Yeah, so JMU 10-4 in a 3-way tie for second place. Troy 11-3. Mind you, JMU has the head-to-head over Troy. So if Troy loses one more and JMU wins out, JMU is the 1 seed. If JMU loses 1 to 2 more games, there is a potential they fall from top 4 to 5. / could even free fall more because then right beneath them, it's 9. If you lose a game, you're looking at not a top 4.
A lot of pressure here, especially with road games against Texas State and ODU, which are both 10-4. So it's a massive week for them. If you get one, it puts you in a decent spot. If you don't get any, it's like, oh, you're clinging on for dear life there at the end of the season.
If you lose both, you fall drastically down to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. A tie for 7th.
I will say the last week is easier where it's at App State and then home against Marshall. Marshall's got a solid team, but App's not great. So like that's reasonably 2-0 the final week possible. So if you split this week, you're 3-1, 13-5, I think gets you a double bye. I feel pretty comfortable with that.
And if you lose 2, I think you're looking at like a 6 seed.
They could still sneak in. You're going to need a little more help than what you were hoping for. That's for sure.
Yeah, as of right now, you need no help. Just go out and do it. Do what you need to do.
Go out and do it. I'm excited about them. Disappointing that they don't get those this many home games to end the season. They had kind of a weird schedule where they were a little bit front loaded with that.
Yeah.
So that's not easy. And Texas to Norfolk's not like a perfect trip either. I don't know why I guess the Texas State one just kind of sucks with whoever you have after that. But that seems particularly challenging. It's like, oh, hey, go play Texas State Thursday at 8 o'clock and then play ODU Saturday at 2 o'clock. And the games mean everything to the standings. Like, cool.
Yeah. Did we have any other questions?
Oh, Dom had a women's question, and then we had a spring sports question. So good call there. His women's basketball question, I think, was very similar to the men's. Yeah. If the women's team doesn't win the conference tournament, but it makes the final, is there any sort of round expectation in the WNIT to make this season feel like a win?
Look, I'm tired of the WNIT.
Okay.
Like, it's cool. I'll root for them. I'll watch the games. I'll be into it. But at the same time, I'd much rather tune into the NCAA tournament round 1 and watch them get clapped by 25. So, like, if they make a WNIT, if they get to the WNIT, which also isn't a guarantee, they have a couple.
That's probably, yeah.
There are a couple black eyes there because they're probably not going to be the regular season champions, so they're not going to get the auto bid. And then I think there's probably a few other schools that are going to get offers.
Well, if they're like the 6th seed, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, The WNIT is not guaranteed. So if they do make it in, like, I don't expect a deep run from them in the WNIT either. Like, to me, you have to win the Sun Belt because me personally, I'd much rather you watch you in the NCAA tournament, but I don't think the WNIT is a sure thing at all.
I mean, if you go Kiki Jefferson's career without an NCAA tournament appearance, big picture wise, it's going to feel disappointing. Like, I don't know how you spin that in a way that is like the season's a win. You know what I mean? I don't know. If you go into this new league and you have one of the better teams, you have one of the better rosters, it's not like, win the Sun Belt or bust. Cause like, I don't think anything would happen. Like what would the negative, you know what I mean? But it's still one where it's like, at some point
you got to do something.
You got to take advantage of an opportunity here. I know they had some really tough situations in terms of,
I don't want to hear it. Do not say COVID
and all that. But the year by year history is even skipping a year, right? So I don't think it has last year on there. And what I'm looking at on the website. So they've gone, because last year they weren't particularly great. Like last year, even if they have the, I don't think you can give them the men's basketball treatment where it's like they lost all motivation, which I don't think the men's team can really get either.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't give that to the men's team either.
So
when you get COVID in December and you're still citing that February 14th, no.
Right. So they were 14-15 last year. The year before they were 14-10. And then the year before that is when they were 25-4 and had the weird simulation that put them in the Sweet 16. Where everyone was like, they made a Sweet 16.
Raise the banner. Raise the banner.
It was like, well, according to a computer. So they didn't actually do that, even though I really like that team. So the last couple of years, they've been pretty underwhelming, and it would be disappointing for them to not at least make a run at it. Now, if they go into the finals and lose a competitive game, I'm not going to freak out about it, but I don't know. They have the overall roster talent to win the Sun Belt. There's no doubt about that.
We saw them. They went toe-to-toe with the best team in the Sun Belt and beat them.
Yeah, I mean, after watching that game, I was like, that's the best. JMU's best team in the Sun Belt.
I still think they are, but I also think they are
yeah.
capable of laying some massive eggs.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So it's one where I think you got to at least look good in the Sun Belt tournament because they've had every now and then they have a conference tournament where it's like, that did not look good. So I think
by every now and then, do you mean every year Coach O went to the CAA tournament or?
Yeah, but the COVID, they would have looked good, man. Computers were telling me Sweet 16. The models were saying that they made a lot of things happen.
Okay, sure.
Big week for them.
They lost in the first round of the CAA tournament as the 1 or 2 seed.
That was an injury year.
No. You can't jack up 53s.
They're pretty healthy now, though. So no excuses here. Let's see something happen. All right.
Speaking of laying eggs.
Oh, God.
Our third Twitter question as we go into spring sports.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good one.
You want me to ask you or do you want to ask me?
Oh, I'll ask you because I think this one is more exciting if you answer it. From Garrett Lamb. You may have covered it a bit in one of the previous podcasts. I actually don't think we covered this, which is why it's a good question. But what would you like to see from the baseball program to deem them, in quotes here, moving in the right direction?
So last season, they finished 1 game above 500, right? In 2021, they finished 6 games below 500. We're going to discount 2020 because Bennett believes that no sport should count in the year of our Lord 2020 because of COVID. They finished 5 games over 500 in 2019. In 2018, they finished 500. In 2017, they finished 500. Moving in the right direction would be winning more games than you lose. But being 10 games above 500. Is that too much to ask? Can you win more series this season than you lose? Is that too much? Is it too much of me to ask, not for a number 1 team in the Sun Belt, but for a competent baseball team that can put together wins and looks competitive in almost every game they play in? Is that too much to ask? You have guys who've gone to the Valley League, which is a top 3rd summer league. Heck, I was talking to Dom earlier today about it. probably a top 3 overall summer league. You have guys going in the Valley and raking, and they come to JMU back from the summer and they regress. And I know they're playing probably against better talent in the CAA, and they'll be playing better talent in the Sun Belt. But you got the talent. You got the dudes, man. Put together wins. Don't be 500.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo those thoughts. I would say like
Thanks.
you kind of have to look. Maybe I'm too high with the expectations. I feel like you have to look like a team that's like close to a Sun Belt contender, or at least moving in that direction. I know that's not like a specific,
But moving in
thing.
that direction, like I don't think you have to be there now, but I think it has to show that you're moving in that direction. Where I think a 500 season does not show me that. A
I
500,
think it has to be very clear though, like really moving that direction because it's Eikenberry's. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, eighth season.
and I think he's 500.
Yeah, it's his 8th season. They've never finished better than 4th in conference play. I don't expect them to do that in the Sun Belt. I think they're picked to finish 10th or something. So the expectations are not there. Or I don't even know if they were 10th. 10th might be high. I might be thinking of someone else. I think it was 10th. But they're not expected to be good. And they kind of have to be good. Like to be moving in the right direction, you have to maybe, I would say, finish in the top half of the Sun Belt, or at least put together some really competitive Sun Belt games. And the schedule's hard. They have some good non-conference teams. But like, I don't know. Why play baseball in the Sun Belt if you aren't going to make an effort to be competitive?
Yeah. And also with this schedule, like you have some gimmies. Like you can front load some wins. You have your series at Florida State. You're going to get swept. So you're starting 0-3. But then after that, Mason, Cornell, George Washington, UMass Lowell, VMI, VCU. VCU is good. USC Upstate, VMI again, and then you're into conference play. There's not a reason you lose any of those series, and you don't lose any of those. VCU is a weird Wednesday midweek after playing the day before at VMI at home. No reason you don't lose more than 2 midweeks.
Like early in the season?
Yeah. I think you beat USC Upstate in a series. You beat UMass Lowell in a series. You beat Cornell. You beat George Mason. You beat George Washington. You beat VMI in both of your midweeks. And you probably lose both of your midweeks to VCU. That's how the season should go to start. And then you're into Sun Belt play.
Yeah, you got to kind of start hot and show some stuff. Worth noting that, or I guess here's a question for you. What do you think Jeff Bourne views as moving in the right direction?
Eikenberry's been on these weird 1-year deals for like the last 3 years.
This one's a 2, I think.
Oh, freak.
I said, let me double check. I think he got 2 with the last deal.
I think
He got a 2-year contract extension, so he's through the 2024 season.
I think Bourne then doesn't see this as like a season. I think he's going to use like the next 2 seasons to evaluate.
I think they would have to lose like 70% of the games for him to move on.
What if they finish last in Sun Belt?
Then I think he would do that. But like for Jeff Bourne to view it as a successful season, I think he just like looks at what he paid Marlon Eikenberry and views it as successful. Like
Eikenberry is the lowest paid men's coach for sure, and I think he's a bottom 3 paid coach overall.
It's only above like men's golf and tennis and stuff, but those like you can't even view those really half the time. Like I don't even know, like golf, I literally don't think streams, right? So if you'd have to go to the tournament to watch them, so there's significantly more value, I think, to the overall athletic department. And I say this as a major golf podcast supporter. Shout out to the women's golf team picking up a match play victory this week. But in terms of like athletic department revenue and like fan interest, you're always going to have more with baseball, especially in the Sun Belt. So they're
playing on ACC Network. They are playing on a national television station on Saturday.
Yeah, they're going to get swept. I think
they're going to get boat raced. But other spring sports also bring a lot of hope and joy to a JMU fan's life, like lacrosse. They are amazing. Like every other spring sport, softball. Maybe not.
We got to talk softball briefly.
Okay, hit me.
I don't know, Jack. I'm disappointed in this opening weekend. 0-2, 3 games got rained out. Obviously, that's outside their control. I'm not upset about
No,
the rainouts.
screw that. You got to play the games.
I'm not upset about the rainouts. But they lose to Chattanooga 4-3, competitive showing. Chattanooga is supposed to be a decent team. Indiana State's supposed to be bad from preseason like conference picks. They lose that game 2-0. I was reading articles before the week about like the offense was like, oh, like we can hit. They score 3 runs in 2 games. A little concerned by that. And I think like, just to be frank with the program, I am rooting incredibly hard for them because their last year was just horrible and tragic. And the ending with Lauren Burnett's death is incredibly sad. So like, I hope they have an incredible year and figure some things out. I'm putting out the alarm bells, ding, 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 for the long-term Lauren Laporte status. To be honest with you, like I don't know what they've done the last couple years to really make you think that what they accomplished under Mickey Dean in the very early Laporte era is sustainable. And I think that's something that no one really talked about, but it was like players that were recruited, if I'm not mistaken, by Mickey Dean.
Odyssey was, I believe, the last class Mickey recruited.
Plus the massive bonus of a COVID year, which was huge for that program. Like the year they started playing in the spring, they were like, okay, they were good, but they were not going to make the Women's College World Series, in my opinion. Then they had a whole nother year to bring that entire team back. And they just seemed like very locked in. They all seemed like they took steps over that offseason, and they were phenomenal. And then you look at them now, and they obviously lost a lot of talent because of the COVID year and things like that. But I mean, the depth isn't even close to like decent Mickey era teams in terms of lineup depth, pitching depth, because he had teams that would make regionals, be competitive in a regional, maybe win that or lose in a super. And he kind of had them at that point every year where it sort of ebbed and flowed. But it wasn't just like Megan Good or Jalen Ford or Odyssey or whatever. Like they had lineup depth, obviously with one ace pitcher. And it feels like they haven't been able to sustain that really at all. Like there were no Mickey Dean teams sort of toward his peak that like you're going to get shut out to Indiana State. That's a game they're winning like via mercy rule in those peak years. So I'm a little concerned, to be honest.
I'd argue that every one of those games in the Charleston Invitational, I know 3 of them got rained out, but like in the peak Mickey years / like early Lauren Laporte era, they're mercy ruling 75% of them.
I mean, like Mickey's records 42-17, 45-15, 48-10, 50-6, 52-8. I mean, that's insane. And then you look at like last year, just on-field results, they were like a 500 team, and this year they look like that'll be similar, maybe worse because the competition's probably stepped up. So yeah, I have some legitimate questions, and I don't know exactly what her contract situation was, but wasn't she kind of like hanging on to the interim title for a really long time when she started? It was something like that, or they didn't give her a long-term deal for, I don't know. I just have a lot of questions about that program.
I believe she was an interim her entire year, first year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was something weird. I don't know. I have some legitimate questions, and it's not like hit the panic button because they played 2 games, 3. Like they've had more games rained out than they've played. So it'd be weird to be like, what's going on? But at the same time, I think you can kind of tell when you watch a team early in a season of like,
yeah,
it's not like, oh, wow, a couple flukes and they're going to go and like compete with Alabama this year or Oklahoma. I mean, they're not there. So that's a little bit sad for me because I love the softball team. So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But I've got my doubts. I've got some real questions.
As you should.
Monitoring the situation. Let's just say that. We're monitoring the situation.
Much like we were with the Chinese spy balloon.
It's very similar to what's happening in our skies. We'll make that our segment. What's happening in the skies.
And over on the other side of the campus at Centera Park, Lacrosse lost 14-9. Technically, it wasn't even on campus. It was at Chapel Hill. Lost 14-9 to UNC, the number one team in the country. Not a bad showing to lose 14-9, I think. I think that's very respectable, and I have high hopes for them. They start out, they play Virginia Tech. That game is an hour into it at recording. So when you're listening to
Dukes at halftime.
What was that?
JMU leads 6-5 at halftime.
So big time for JMU in that one. When you're listening, you can check and see if JMU beat Virginia Tech. Then they go to UConn. They play in Sparks, Maryland, neutral site against UConn, and they're at High Point on February 25th, my birthday, and then they're back at home for their first home game on March 1st against Maryland. So really fun schedule to start things off and a lot of hope around them. If you're watching this stream, you can watch that Virginia Tech game on ACC Network Extra.
Absolutely.
Anything else you got to add?
Shout out women's golf one more time. Winning the Oyster Shuck Match Play Tournament. Pretty cool. Good for them.
Do you want to hear a fun fact about that?
Oh, yeah.
The last 7 winners of the Oyster Shuck Invitational have gone on to win the national championship.
Completely wrong. That's unbelievable. You heard it here first. Breaking news. But I love them. We had Tommy Baker on the podcast, I guess last year. No, maybe it was 2 years ago. It was a while ago.
You got to bring him back on.
We got to bring him back on. Head coach for them. They're rolling. We love that group. Shout out to them for making some waves. So I'm excited to see how some things shake out spring sports-wise. But we're also monitoring the skies. And we will continue to monitor our skies and protect them how we see fit.
Keep your eyes fixed to the north or the south, depending on where you are, maybe the east, maybe the west. And we'll be sending up smoke signals after every JMU softball game saying how dire the situation is. For Bennett Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.